This is the approach plate for the Rnav uh, to runway 4 in Batavia, Ohio. It does have as a primary approach the LP, but the G1000 doesn't have an approach in the database for that. Uh, and so we'll be dealing with the LNAV in this demonstration. So on the approach plate, there's an unusual feature, although it's not uncommon with American approaches, to have a hold on the final approach course, very, very close to the final approach fix. It's only 7 miles away, and the aircraft in that hold can be down extremely low, so they can just transition directly from here onto the approach. And there is an initial approach fix over here to feed into this as well. But this is built into the approach plate in the G1000. So if you were over in this vicinity here, it would be understood by the G1000 that when you come in here, you're going to have to enter the hold just as if it was, a standard hold, and do the offset and then maneuver back to go overhead the JAXA initial approach fix, and then commence the approach. But if you're over here, over in this area, it would be entirely possible that you could get yourself onto the approach course and then straightened out, and you wouldn't have to do the hold. And it's actually not called a hold, it's called a course reversal in the G1000. So when you first load the approach, you would be asked, do you want the course reversal? And if you say no, then it will take this out of the sequence of waypoints. It'll take the hold out of the sequence of waypoints. But if you were, say, trapped by a late ATC clearance up high, you might want to go into the hold for one lap around in order to get rid of excess altitude, for instance, in which case you would say, yes, I want to do the course reversal. So we'll see that on the rest of this video. You'll see what how it's offered to you and what you do to select or not select. And then just another word on these things. This is what replaces the MSA in a lot of approach plates. It's called a TAA, the Terminal Arrival Area. And you can see that it allows for different altitudes as you get closer to the center point. This area here is the minimum safe altitude within 30 nautical miles of JAXA when no procedure turn is being conducted. So inside of the 30 miles, you can go down to 2,600, and if you get inside 20 miles, you can go down to 2,500. And similarly out here, this one is broken down into a couple sectors. And you could also have sectors that are defined by a radial going out from the center point, JOTPA in this case. And then on this side it would be one set of numbers, and on this side it would be another set of numbers for minimum altitudes. So this will illustrate the two different ways of approaching that hold at Batavia. We're currently going direct to JAXA, and I'll load the approach. There, fly course reversal at JAXA. No, we don't need it because we'll be able to go straight in. So we'll select enter, and then we'll put in the MDA 1320. And we can activate that.
Vertical track.
There's our vertical track. We'll quickly get the altitude down. And select Vnav. We're just 19 seconds to top of descent. Vertical path is captured. We're going down to the Vnav altitude of 2,500 feet at JAGSA. And you can see that here in the approach, there is no hold. It would normally be in here. So we'll just fly this part out. We'll get down to just past JAGSA. And then I'll take the airplane back up again to do it from another position where the course reversal is required. So approaching JAGSA, when we're just about to get on the approach path, it would be appropriate to get back to a slower speed, something in the order of 110. And now the FAF is now the active waypoint, and therefore Rnav is now displayed on the CDI, and the rest is just the final portion of the approach. Okay, now we're back in a different part of the sky with respect to JAGSA. We're northwest, and we're turning towards it. So I'll get the approach loaded. And you can see that we weren't offered the option to refuse the course reversal, because it's obvious we're going to have to do the course reversal. I should have activated the approach. There it is now. And we'll clear this and get the flight plan up on this side. So now we've got the hold.
Vertical track.
Oh, I better get Vnav cooking. Just 6 seconds to go, almost missed it. But the hold is now placed in between JAGSA and the FAF. And you can see that it is a 4-mile hold as opposed to a timing hold. So that means that this point here is 4 miles, and that's the point where you initiate the turn. So wherever you end up coming around here, doesn't matter, as long as you're on inbound on the course, you are within the boundary. Much easier to fly. You don't have to worry about trying to figure out what this distance is. It's going to give you exactly 1 minute to the fix. It's far easier to fly. And the mileage comes from up here, JAGSA, because while you are in the hold, the G1000 keeps track of its distance from JAGSA. So it's obvious if you're entering this hold, it would be what we would call an offset, what the US calls a teardrop. The way this is set up, or the way it's designed, there could be a different altitude. Here it's showing you exactly how it's going to do it. So we must be just on the boundary of the direct entry, because it's showing you a direct entry path here. And our track right now is 149. This track is 220, and that's exactly the 110 degrees. This angle here is exactly 110 degrees, which is the boundary line between offset and direct entry. Holding direct entry. We slide the airspeed down to 110 to 120. Next heading is 149 in a few seconds. And that's the heading that we are inbound on. It shows here that we're going into a 4-mile hold. And there's the hold symbol, and here's the point that is the consistent. This is showing the distance from that point at all times. So the G1000 is smart enough to know that it shouldn't start the turn immediately on flying overhead the fix. It went ahead for a period of time, and then it turned to a heading. So obviously the G1000 is able to calculate when, given these wind conditions that exist now, when to turn to put itself on this line that is a given distance out from the holding course. And it's just smart enough to do that. Takes all that work away from you. Now as you're in the hold, each segment of the hold will light up as you get to it. So the next one is probably this 180 degree turn, and then the next segment is there, and then by that time you would be prepared to continue on the approach. See, the mileage is approaching 4. The airplane goes into its turn. The next segment, oh, the whole thing lights up. So if we don't do something, we'll be in this hold forever. What we have to do is activate the next leg. So we have to get the cursor active, scroll to the next waypoint, and then activate leg. Yes, we want it. And now, there it is activated. And just deactivate the cursor there. And this leg that we are on is not magenta anymore, but we are going direct to the FAF, and that presumably takes us right over JAXA, and we stay on the line. Now the approach plate, if you remember, did not have any kind of indication on how to evaluate a vertical path from the FAF to the missed approach point. All it said on the approach plate was that the angle should be 3 degrees. So at the moment, I'll just slow us down to approach speed of 100, and that gives us 92 knots. And the rate of descent to achieve a 3-degree glide path when you're doing 92 knots is a little less than 480 feet per minute. And that comes straight off the approach charts down in the bottom left corner. On all the Canadian ones, you'll see the required rates of descent for any given ground speed. And it has to be ground speed. It can't be airspeed. It has to be ground speed. So if we want to, we can use VS and start right at the FAF and initiate a 500 foot per minute rate of descent. Now we know that's a little more than what we need, so we can anticipate that at some point we'll probably have to decrease it to 400, because we can only go in increments of 100 feet per minute. But that's what we'll do. So what you have to do is know not the ratio, but the multiplication factor, and you just multiply your ground speed times 5.3. So 5.3 times 100 would be 530, and I know that 90 is pretty close to 480, so 92 is somewhere in that vicinity, and we'll have to select 500 initially. We have this vertical path still armed. I didn't notice that, but we don't want it. So we have this option here, cancel VNav, and that's what we'll select. And if you ever wanted to use it again, you would have to select this button, the enable VNav. Okay, so at 50 seconds to go, we can set 1320 We can't on the trainer. We can on the airplane, but we can't set MDA precisely. And we can also select VS, vertical speed, and it has 0 feet per minute, so it'll hold us level until we hit the FAF. Okay, 500 feet per minute, down we go. And that was the FAF, so we didn't have a check altitude. We would make a call to Batavia traffic and final configuration check, 3 green, approach flap down. We do have that step down altitude at WUPGO, 1550. The bird is actually a pretty good indicator of your glide path, and it appears that it's centered on the touchdown zone, so it looks like our initial descent angle is pretty good. I'm going to decrease the rate of descent just by 100 feet a minute, because we know that we initially set on too much, and I don't want to bust the 1550 altitude at WUPGO. Yeah, it looks like we'll be good, so I'm going to go back to the 500 feet a minute. And now we're going down to, we'll call it 1300 because the trainer isn't capable of leveling off at 1320. There, the altitude is capturing the 1300 feet. We level off, and we're at 1.3 miles. That'll give us good opportunity.
Minimums.
Give us a good opportunity to see the runway in time to make a landing.